All right, I'd like to call a special meeting of the Board of Education to order on June 29th at about 6:34 p.m. Roll call, please.
Member Orr? Here. Member Hassanatcha?
Here.
Member Demmett? He's running a few minutes late, all right. Member Hall?
Here.
Member Carter is here, Vice President Exum here, and President Pulaski.
Here, I would like to start with citizen statements. There's one in person from G.G. Mullins.
The first thing is a letter that you can several help requesting to go to school. So that among other things, we know what is being taught. And looking at that. Is that questions? Last week, I was talking about that we still open the fall, that will be that's how we ask. Because I don't and I didn't see anything in the record. That was actually based on the safety of our kids. It was that location. Well, according to the distances, it's school districts have done this in that. And we need to 15. For the request that school be upgraded to phase 5. That's that. Phase 5. Phase 1, one metric has to be started with population. And in elementary school, population is mostly adults. Especially considering the 12 years old up to the guidelines are briefly for changes about the COVID guidelines. So far, what I'm being told, we're asking people from school.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. We have a number of submissions that were received at our email address as well that I will read in turn. The first is from Holly Threckle. Hello, my name is Holly Threckle, and I am a parent of 2 USD 116 children, a medically fragile preschooler at UEC, and a typical third grader to be at Leal. My medically fragile child is the easy one for fall school decision making. It qualifies for homebound, and it is absolutely appropriate. My other child's academic future is becoming a nightmare. When initial guidance was put out in April, it outlined a remote plan for which siblings of medically fragile children would also be eligible. Then, as quickly as that plan had appeared, it was nixed. Initially, I wavered between sending her in personal or seeing if her pediatrician would recommend homebound for her on benefit of my son's safety. I'm aware of the low statistics, yet currently have a family member who actively has COVID in Vermilion County. So that personal connection reminds me of how the risk is still real. Then yesterday, I had an article brought to my attention in which USD 116 and Unit 4 were requesting looser Phase 5 guidelines. There is no way I would now be comfortable with my unvaccinated 8-year-old spending all day in a school building under those circumstances and then coming home to her brother, who depends on 2 to 4 rounds of 3 different respiratory machines per day. And I have sat with in the hospital for pneumonia and common viruses. I have seen unmasked school-age children in the pharmacy and grocery when I've had the rare need to enter, and no kids who have a hard time with extended mask wearing at school after witnessing Zoom sessions in which no reprimands were given to in-person students wearing them improperly. I also cannot rely on the trust system for adults, teens who choose not to wear masks to be actually reliably vaccinated around my children. But where does that leave my daughter? Potentially not qualified for a homebound program of minuscule academic instruction? As my son's full-time caretaker, homeschool is not an option. She needs the socialization just as he needs the safety, but reduction of precautions take that away from her. Thus, I implore you to re-implement remote learning, even if it's just a Zoom with active classroom. Both of my children have a right to a safe quality education as well. And right now, my daughter is without options and forgotten. Thank you, Holly Thurgold. This is from Amy Claymore. Dear Superintendent Dr. Ivory Tatum and members of the USD 116 Board of Education, I am writing to express my deep concern over Dr. Ivory Tatum's sign-on to the LUDA letter urging ISB to relax COVID-19 guidelines. I understand that you are in a tough position having to figure out how to accommodate these guidelines for our children in our district. That said, our children are not vaccinated and there's a very dangerous, highly contagious strain of COVID-19 in the United States. I get that the world seems moving on from COVID-19 as though it were a distant memory, but as a parent of a small child, I don't see this as the best choice. For this reason, we are still wearing masks and taking other precautions in my family. I see the parents of other small children taking the same precautions. I expected our district would too. I do not love the possibility of online kindergarten, but if this is what we must do to make sure schools can safely reopen, I am willing to make that sacrifice. Please consider making the changes to our policies that are needed for our kiddos to attend school online again for the fall semester or until all school-aged children are vaccinated. I also ask that you set clear policies requiring universal masking in schools for both staff and students, regardless of vaccine status, clearly outline how distancing will work within classrooms and at mealtimes, explain how testing and quarantine will be used, and clearly outline all other COVID precautions staff, students, parents, and community can expect this school year, with the understanding that this may change recommendations from ISB or IDPH. Let's start the school year off with a better foot than we did last year. Thank you. Next is from Jennifer Straub. Dear Superintendent Dr. Ivory Tatum and members of the USD 116 Board of Education, I am writing today extremely concerned by the lack of clear communication parents and community members are receiving regarding plans for the upcoming school year. Last fall, many parents and their employers were left unprepared when our district had to pivot to online education at the last minute instead of making concrete plans months in advance. Now, frustratingly, it appears we may be in a similar situation this year. In the recently published article on patch.com, USD 116 parents learned that Superintendent Ivory Tatum signed on to a letter of the LUSD to the ISBE discrediting any recommendations from the Illinois Department of Public Health regarding reopening and requesting that guidelines on masking and distancing be more relaxed on the basis that IDPH is not an expert on K through 12 education, though I have yet to see their credentials on public health, which to my mind should weigh far more heavily when creating policy during a deadly global pandemic. To my knowledge, this was done without the guidance of the board or input from parents. This, the same week that the World Health Organization urged vaccinated individuals to continue masking to prevent the spread of the Delta variant, which comprises 10% of the cases in the United States and is known to cause more harm to children. Therefore, we know that all children under the age of 12 will not be eligible for the vaccine until after the beginning of the school year. Many families in our district, including my own, have gone to great lengths to protect ourselves, our children, and our community from the spread of COVID-19, sacrificing income, career advancement, travel, and more during the long 17 months of this pandemic. And we know the pandemic has taken a far greater toll on our most vulnerable families. It seems so reckless when the finish line of having all of our children vaccinated by the end of the calendar year is well in sight to throw caution to the wind in favor of convenience at this late date, while we still don't know what the next variant has in store. I ask that the board strongly consider changing board policy in favor of allowing remote instruction for those families who are concerned with COVID-19 infection rates until at least 8 weeks after the school-aged children are able to be vaccinated or the end of December. If the district is unable to meet this obvious need, I would ask that they find a way to outsource it. This action, safer for the families who are able to choose it, would also create needed room in schools to safely distance. I would like to see this as an agenda item at your next meeting, to which you can invite the public input you have as yet failed to seek. Further, I ask that you set clear policy now requiring universal masking in schools for both staff and students, regardless of vaccine status, clearly outline how distancing will work within classrooms and at mealtimes, explain how testing and quarantine will be used, and clearly outline all other COVID precautions staff, students, parents, and community can expect this school year, with the understanding that this may change with recommendations from ISBE or IDPH. It makes sense to do this before you ask parents to register their children for school on July 6th. It is not unreasonable for parents and the community to ask for this level of transparency. Thank you for your thoughtful work on this issue and the time and care you devote to the students of Urbana. Sincerely, Ken Strong. Next is from Robin Fellers. Members of the USD 116 School Board and Dr. Ivory Tatum, we feel quite surprised and deeply concerned by the recent news of Superintendent Ivory Tatum signing on to a letter to the ISBE asking for guidelines on masking and distancing to be more relaxed when the next school year begins. As parents of a student who is required to return in the fall, let me be clear, we want masking and distancing. Currently, local case counts are low, and that is wonderful. However, our vaccination rates have stalled. The highly contagious Delta variant is poised to rapidly become the country's dominant COVID strain. And because of this, earlier this week, the World Health Organization urged even those who are vaccinated to continue masking and distancing efforts. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy also highlights the dangers of the variant to the unvaccinated. And as we're all aware, children under 12 are still unable to be vaccinated. So many have worked incredibly hard and at great personal cost over the past 15 months to keep our children safe. Now is not the time to let down our guard, not when we're so close to getting our children vaccinated. We ask for the following: set a strict universal masking policy for everyone in our schools, outline how distancing will work in classrooms and especially at mealtimes. This will not be easy if everyone is required to return to in-person learning. Indeed, it may prove impossible if meals are required to be eaten only in the cafeteria or classrooms. However, it may be achievable with some flexibility, creative thinking, and collaboration within schools or with the public. Clearly explain how testing and quarantining will be used to protect our staff, students, and families. Please allow advice from medical experts to guide all COVID-related decision-making, and please make transparency in those decisions a priority. Thank you for your time and effort on these difficult issues and for all you do to serve the USD 116 community. Robin and Ryan Fellers. The last one is from Johannes Frazier. To USD 116 BOE. We are parents of two children attending Leal Elementary, and both are under 12 years old. We firmly believe that USD 116 should provide a continuation of remote learning for elementary school students. Currently, one of our most vulnerable populations include children under the age of 12 for whom there is no COVID-19 vaccine. That the district is expecting them back for full in-person learning is irresponsible. There is no reason why we cannot continue the remote hybrid option that we have successfully been following during spring 2021, because 105 ILCS 5-10-29 outlines how USD can provide remote education. By continuing the past year's model until kids 12 and under can receive the vaccine makes the most sense because it would solve many of the worries, safety protocols, and distancing questions of many parents. We would like to see an agenda item at your next meeting to discuss ILCS 5/10-29 and consider a change of board policy to provide for remote learning. What is particularly disappointing is that the district never asked parents for our input or concerns about returning to school. Otherwise, you would have heard many voices expressing interest in continuing with remote learning. The only district-wide feedback you requested concerned technology needs for summer and fall. Additionally, we recently learned that Dr. Ivory Tatum signed on to a letter asking ISBE for weaker Phase 5 guidelines without consultation from the USD Board or community input. It seems your failure to appropriately communicate continues to show us you're more concerned with talking amongst yourselves rather than addressing parents and concerned citizens in the community. We sent a letter of concern to board@usd116.org on June 16th expressing our concerns and only heard back from one of you. Sorry. For over a year, our family and many others have worked hard to protect our children and the community from COVID-19. It would be foolish to begin fall 2021 without a remote learning option for unvaccinated children. Janice Schwerer and Johannes Frazier. The last one I have is from Teresa Sweeney. Hello, we're approaching a new school year and I'm very excited that we're moving back to more normal functioning. I lived in Urbana over 20 years and I grew up in the city of Chicago. I chose CU as a place to live and raise my family because it was a safer community. I, along with most people, have been alarmed by the increase in gun violence involving teens in this community. I have had a student at UHS since 2012. I know that there are both BOE members who are continuing to bring up eliminating and or decreasing the SRO in Urbana. I disagree due to the significant safety issues which will result. I challenge you to convince me that my son, other students, and staff will be safe. Can you protect the learning environment of UHS with what you have planned? There are significantly more staff employed at UHF to support students now than in 2012, yet the issues at UHS continue to increase and mirror violence in the community. Limiting SROs at this time is wrong. Students have not had a traditional structured learning environment in over a year. Many have had limited to no services. Please keep our schools safe and work towards creating a safer culture and climate before eliminating any safety measures. Teresa Sweeney. This concludes our citizen statements. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications of tonight's agenda? If not, I would welcome a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Orr,
Yes.
Member Hasanaka,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Pulaski.
Yes. Now we have recognitions and accommodations.
So I'd like to welcome Coach Faroki up to this is you guys' moment. Yay! And he is going to introduce some members from the third place state finishing UHS Tigers boys track and field team. They brought their hardware with them too.
Yeah, so as far as who's here with us today, I'll be introducing, this is our state final 4x1 team. I'll introduce them in the order in which we ran. So first up is Daniel Boyle. Next is Jeremiah Hamilton. Freshman center Saban. Last but not least, Jackson Gilbert.
So I wanted to acknowledge some things that may have been sent out to the public, but to acknowledge this first, this was Daniel Mboyo. To start off the day, was the first ever long jump state champion for Urbana High School. We've had I'm a big sucker for history. If you come to my office, I've got all the trophies from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, which I think is important for building culture in the building. So when you look back at the data, Welby Miller in 1908 placed second, 1919 Alan Steele placed third, and in 1988 Terry Johnson placed third in the long jump. So again, Daniel is your first ever state champion, and he is also going on to jump at the University of Illinois, and I'm sure other things as well. So big deal for him. The 4x1 as a whole, again, was the first ever state title. Going back in history, there was not, I don't think a 4x1 has ever placed in the top 10. So not only was this the first ever top 10, but the first title. So that was huge as well. Jeremiah, 2 years ago, placed third in the 200-meter dash. And I know that stuck with him and has guided him over the last couple of years. He really committed himself and came back this year and bested a crosstown rival, but also somewhat of a crosstown friend, Kyle Bergoni. A lot of respect for him and his program, but came away with the win and a great time. And I believe he now holds the all-time score record for the 200-meter dash in that event. So. And so just wanted to say a couple things, especially just, hearing the first few minutes of the board meeting today. It has been a really difficult year. I don't need to spend any time preaching to the choir, but I do want to say all the seniors that I mentioned and the seniors that are up here worked full-time jobs on top of dealing with the difficulties of remote learning. A lot of them have siblings that had similar difficulties to what was expressed a few minutes ago. And they managed to make the best out of that situation. So not only is this a special group, not only did we do something that hasn't happened in multiple events in the school's history, but we were able to do that out of a year that was extremely challenging. And so, I'm seeing all these coaches on Twitter saying, oh, why are the times not what they should have been this year? And I engaged with them and I said, you've got kids that are choosing to, with the shortened school day, kids were choosing to go to work because they had more time in their day. They had to babysit siblings. They had to problem solve. They had all these other things that were going on. And this group and those who are not here were doing everything. And they were doing it with happy faces. And my only goal at the start of the season was just to try and have a positive experience. I think that was the most important thing. Is that these kids had been at home for the better part of a year, and we wanted to have fun and train hard and spend time together, and that's what we did. And so I'm extremely proud of them, and I'm looking forward to seeing these two and those who I mentioned kind of go on to their next chapter. Again, I mentioned Daniel, but Jeremiah also signed on to Southern Illinois. So we've got two Division I. We've got two Division I athletes emerging out of this year, and it's been kind of a wild ride. And I'm really thankful that they stuck with the program for 4 years. Again, we had our track season canceled a year ago. They had their football season canceled, and somehow we put it all together and made it work. And it's going to be one to remember for a long time. So thank you for having us. I do want to give you one. I've got a medal for Ivy Tatum here. I'm going to present this to you now.
So I don't know if we're allowed to comment at all, but I'm going to interject myself anyway. I'm going to geek out a minute. So I'm an Urbana High School Hall of Famer, former track athlete here. This just makes me so excited. So proud of you. And I wish I could have been in the stands, freaking out and yelling for you. And I just look forward to watching you run more. And if you haven't been, you should be checking out those Olympic time trials, because that'll also get you going. You'll be running faster.
It's been an exciting week for the Olympic time trials. And before I forget, got to send a special shout out to our guy, Javay Wright. It's a local business owner who's been working with some of the Urbana programs. I first got kind of saw him and acknowledged him through his work with the Urbana basketball program. And he pulled out all the stops, and just a couple weeks prior to state said, I'm gonna hook you guys up, and gave us some really nice uniforms that I think was just one more thing to add into the pot that made that day even more special. So I wanted to say publicly thank you for that, and give him your support if you can. So thank you for having us, and hopefully we can keep the ball rolling. So thank you.
Congratulations, guys. That's wonderful. There will be an executive session following this meeting for the purpose of personnel. There will be no action following the executive session. We have some action items to discuss tonight. 8.1 is the leasing agreement with CU Mass Transit District, which we discussed at our last meeting, but which is up before us tonight for a vote. Is there any motion on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this action item? Does anyone have any questions? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Member Orr,
Yes.
Member Hassanaka,
Yes.
Member Dimmitt stepped out, Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Pulaski.
Yes, motion passes. Number 8.2 is the renewal of insurance, which was discussed at our last meeting, making Carol Baker the agent for the board to pursue the best coverage she could find in a very tight situation. Carol, you want to kind of brief us on the bad news?
Yeah, wish I had better news for you. At your place tonight, I did provide as summarized as I could be with how difficult this situation was for us this year. Last year, we did have one carrier for all of our property and liability, and I've listed out what all of those were together, about $158,000 for all of our property and liability and auto coverage. This year, because of losses we've had over the last 5 years, they had to actually go out and get different carriers to quote on individual policies and not the whole package as a whole. And still didn't have very good results. We had a lot of declinations from carriers, something that I've never seen in my entire time here at this district. And I don't think it's something that our insurance carrier has seen. Again, the market is really hard right now. I mean, the people are seeing rate increases everywhere. But unfortunately, with our loss history, ours are extremely high this year. And not only are the premiums high, but the deductibles are high. So these are all large deductible plans that we're looking at, the majority of them. So we're pretty much covering catastrophic coverage. It's going to cover us if major things happen. The little fender benders that we have, the small claims are not going to be covered. We're going to have to pay for those out of pocket. So that's the sad part of this is we're paying a very high amount of insurance coverage, insurance premium for coverage that we hope we won't even use. For instance, the property, we have a $25,000 deductible on that, so that one's not too bad. That will be with Travelers at $329,000. Just as a comparison, last year the property was $144,000 for the property and liability together. So everything is more than doubling. And we had some wind and hail damage. We had the tornado at Yankee Ridge. We had the hail damage. And because of that, they're even adding on, if it's a wind or hail type claim, they will only cover 2% of whatever that building value is, or $250,000. So I don't think any of our claims have been that high. So pretty much, we hope that doesn't happen again. We've had some bad couple of years, but again, pretty high deductibles on that. The liability is going to be with Munich, which is a company we've not been with before. $182,000 for that, a $2 million limit, which is much less than we've had. For those of you that have been around a while, when we went through the John White era, the board asked us to increase. we put a $10 million umbrella over the top of everything just to cover us in case we have any bad liability claims. We only have 2 million right now. We used to have 1 million plus a $10 million umbrella. So for a total of 11, we now have $2 million. So Arthur Gallagher is going to now go out, now that we have this coverage in place, they're going to go out and try to get excess coverage to try to fill that gap. So even with this amount of money we have here, we still don't have the coverage that we had before. And with that package liability, and not only is it a $2 million limit, but the self-insured retentions are 150 or 250,000, depending on the type of claim it is, whether it's school board legal or we have school board legal and employee benefits coverage and employee auto liability as well. So again, very high deductibles on those. The other ones are pretty small. Crime coverage with travelers is 4,100. And then they're also requiring for our liability that we have a third-party administrator to actually handle our claims. They're estimating that to be about 15,000. We reached out to CCMSI today, who's our third-party administrator for our work comp. And hopefully they will be able to do the liability for us too at a cheaper rate than that. But the other thing that went way up is cyber because of ransomware attacks and just the way the industry is now. Our policy, I think last year was 14,000. It went up to 34,000. So even the small coverages are increasing. And then you can see the excess workers' comp. We are self-insured for work comp, and we're doing a pretty good job at that. But we do buy excess workers' comp to cover the large claims, and that even went up about 25,000 this year. So the only thing that stayed the same was our CCMSI third-party administrator stayed at 27,000. So thankful for that. So overall, with these limited options, it's basically they basically said you either have to accept this catastrophic coverage or it's that or nothing. I mean, we had no carriers. We had a lot of carriers that declined, and carriers that they basically would only cover us if these were the options that we took. So we didn't really have any place else to go. And this coverage goes into place tonight at midnight. So we had to make a decision today. So this all came together today. So I'm providing this to you for board approval. Again, we might be having some additional changes just to get that gap covered for the liability over the next couple of weeks. But the overall estimated coverage is going to be about 690,000. And we were at about 260 last year. So never seen an increase like that. That is just $430,000 increase. So I hate to bring you this news, but I will take this into consideration when I do the budget, and we'll have to move some levy money into tort to help pay for insurance. So we'll be talking about that more in a couple months. But right now, wish I had better options for you, but that's what I recommend tonight.
Paying more and getting less. Board, are there any questions? Okay, I have a couple. When it comes to the budget projections we're going to have to look at in August, are you planning on this is a lot of work for you, but are you planning on going the claims you've had maybe last year and the year before, and then try to figure out how much would these claims have cost us under the new insurance model to figure out how much more are we spending, not just in the premiums, but in the fact that we have such high deductibles?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to budget more because, like I said, all these claims that insurance has been covering for the past few years are now going to be under that self-insured retention amount. So we're going to be covering that in addition to paying these premiums. So the tort fund is good. The budget is going to go way up. The only revenues that go into that fund are tax levy. So we will have, since we're a tax cap, we'll have to take money from one of the other funds, taxes, and divert it over to tort to help pay for this. I did ask them if this was something they thought would be with us for a while, or did they think it was a one-year blip that maybe next year the rates would go down again? It's kind of hard to say right now. I mean, we have some claims that are still outstanding, that the TRS 6% one being a big one. So if those end up settling this year or finalizing this year, hopefully that's something that will help the rates go down when that unknown's not out there. And again, we probably will have a pretty good year because we're not going to have many claims hopefully that reach this amount. So hopefully our losses will be down. So we're hoping this is something that is short-lived and not going to be with us for very long.
Is this typically a yearly renewal
It's yearly. Yeah. Yeah, we will start the process again next February or March like we did this year. It just seems like things came down to the wire this year and it really got scary. Some of us have been losing sleep over it.
Any further questions? If not, is there a motion on the floor?
I move to accept the current rates that Carol has proposed for insurance for the coming school year.
Is there a second?
A second.
Roll call, please.
Member Orr,
Yes.
Member Hassanatka,
Yes.
Member Dennett,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Carter says yes, Vice President Evans,
Yes.
and President Palaski.
Yes. Passes. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity.
So moved. Oh,
I got a question. So when I was doing my school board member training, I think they specifically said, rather than reading a blanket statement like that, you're supposed to say why you're going into closed session. It doesn't have to be specifically, we're going to review and do an evaluation, but you have to say, we're going to do an evaluation on a person. That way the public have an idea of why you actually went into closed session. I could find that and bring that to your attention at the next board meeting if you like.
That's great.
I think the
But you're
law,
not supposed to be so vague like this, because that kind of goes in this whole line of transparency issues.
This was in practice as a result of the advice of our attorneys, but we can look into that.
it's also what the lawyers instructed us to do.
But carry on.
Right, thanks. Is there a motion? Tori has it and Ann seconded
I'll
it.
second it. Tori.
Okay, roll call, please.
Member Orr,
Yes.
Member Hassanatka,
Yes.
Member Dennett,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum. Yes. And President Pulaski.
Yes, we are in closed session. Let's take about
Paul.
2 or
If prior to going into closed session, I would like to rise for a personal note.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry, John.
Please. I'd like to say I've got a statement that I'd like to read. For nearly 34 years, it has been my honor to be a part of several leadership teams for the school district. Beyond the obvious team of 7 elected board members, those district leadership teams have often consisted of a board member or 2, plus administrators, teachers, UEA elected leaders, or students. Sometimes those leadership teams included parents, volunteers, or community members. Other times those teams consisted of fellow elected officials from other units of government, united in partnership to improve the larger community. All were motivated by the aim of making Urbana a stellar place to raise a family and prepare young people to achieve their personal greatness. Everyone involved in those teams are leaders, individuals committed to excellence, people focused on what is best for students. No one knew everything, but everyone was willing to contribute and listen to others, leading to the best collaborative decisions possible. I've indeed been very fortunate to work with such outstanding, dedicated individuals, sometimes in very challenging times, all leading to a better school system. I look back at key milestones or guideposts in which I had a direct role, ranging from all-day kindergarten to comprehensive arts program leading to an extended school day, to 3, a budget process in good times or bad that is transparent, accurate, and responsive to the needs and capacity of local taxpayers, to 4, the passage of the school facility sales tax and a few other innovative financial procedures that strengthened the health and vitality of the district, to 5, a comprehensive strategy to finally leave the 1960s behind and bring excellence and modern vitality
to our buildings, athletic facilities, and outdoor spaces for current and future needs. To 6, a strong commitment to the Urbana way of participatory decision-making with strong and respected professionals at all staff levels, all understanding the value of compromise, not limited to, but truly evidenced by a productive series of UEA contracts. And most importantly, to 7, a strong sense of responsibility to all students and families, not just those that live within a subdistrict, but everyone from the entire district. From my seat, I see a district that is ready to move confidently into a future where all students can and will learn, can and will experience success, can and will have a sense of how their personal greatness can contribute to society. I also know that to make the next step forward on that journey requires maximum attention to the specific situation in Urbana, tailored to the specific needs of our students, specifics. A board member must be able to actively assist the superintendent as she leverages Urbana's strengths and shores up weaknesses. A board member must, 1, diligently gain an understanding of all sides of current and arising issues. 2, possess unbounded energy to build coalitions that resolve differences and lead to unified progress. And 3, embody the ability to strongly research, synthesize, and then advocate for Urbana, studying state and national educational trends and then judiciously applying that research to our specific context here in Urbana, responsive to Urbana students. I also know that doing this credibly requires more than my health and stamina will allow. In the last 2 years, I've experienced a major stroke and now a major heart attack. My general good health has afforded me a quick recovery from those acute episodes. However, this has once again put my personal health front and center. Further recovery has included a diagnosis of early stage Parkinson's with its chronic, unrelenting, progressive deterioration of my physical, emotional, and mental capabilities, accelerated by stress. This has led me to the very difficult realization that well before this progression becomes burdensome to me or the district, it is time for me to step aside as of August 18th, 2021, wrong century. Despite the July hiatus, this should provide the board with ample time to seek my replacement. I am the last Urbana school board member originally elected district-wide, and I have never forgotten the need to consider the whole district. So I hope the board will select someone who will represent Subdistrict 7 with fidelity, yet with an inclusive understanding of the whole community. President Pulaski and I have agreed that I would continue to serve as a member of the District Standing Facility Committee, which pleases me greatly. Further, since I now have more service to the district than nearly any current staff member, I will certainly be available should the board seek the historical context of any situation. I've been told by many past colleagues that there is indeed life after board service. So I'm desperately trying to prepare myself to test that concept. I close with an ask that my final milestone be the continued pursuit of student leadership and increased but organized student voice within the district. So I hope that someone else is ready to step forward and champion our work with consultant Derek Peterson, leading to student representation at the board level. But beyond that, and new to the discussion, I would like the district to pursue an endowment for an Urbana School Board Student Leadership Seminar Series. I've submitted a draft proposal under separate cover with greater details to President Pulaski and Superintendent Ivory Tatum for the board's future consideration. The desired legacy of all district leaders, elected, volunteer, or staff, is to leave the district a better place than we found it. And preparing our students to be tomorrow's leaders is certainly a major pillar of that objective. So just like some of those prior milestones, this might be my initiative, but it will be so much better with some group thought. So it truly becomes a community project, of which I hope to be one of many key participants. Thank you to the people of Urbana for the opportunity to serve and contribute.
Thank you, John. It's no secret when I ran for this position, 10 years ago, I did so in no small part because of something you said on the radio that made me angry. But I have to say that in the past decade, I've really come to respect and admire the way that you've handled this office. And so thank you tremendously for your
Thank you.
service.
I ditto that. Coming in, being on the other side, you really don't know what goes on this side. And, you have your opinions of everybody and you have people in your ear telling you what a person is or, how they are. And, I can genuinely say I came in with somewhat of an opinion, but an open mind. And I'm glad I'm the kind of person to have that open mind, because I've certainly grown to really respect you and appreciate you and your opinions. And even the few times we had to agree to disagree, we did so tactfully and with respect. And I could still pick up the phone and call you and you could do the same. And you will be greatly missed on the board, but congratulations on all of the years. I hope you have plenty that you can enjoy outside of board life and get back to your trips and hanging out with the high school students and all of that good stuff. So good luck.
I'll be here for 2 more meetings, so.
More meetings. Well, and we're glad we have the opportunity to celebrate your legacy, John. That means a lot to us, so thank you.
Said we'll take about a 2 or 3 minute recess at this point before we enter closed session formally. Thank you.